Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me today, I have Professor Anthony Killer, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Okweyemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office Enough, as well as Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner and national development advocate. Well, we're starting out with this matter here of the frequent collapse of the national grid this year, which has got Nigerians worried. In the last few days alone, the electricity grid has collapsed 3 times, leaving Nigerians with no power supply. Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, is now asking agencies under the ministry to urgently implement the recommendations of the interagency committee set up to address the incessant grid collapses in the power sector. Meanwhile, the Transmission Company of Nigeria says instability in the national grid will likely persist as the system undergoes repairs. Arise correspondent Charles Eruka reports.
In 2024 alone, Nigeria has experienced at least 11 collapses of the national grid, with the latest power cut occurring on Thursday, November the 7th, after an earlier shutdown on Tuesday, November the 5th. A timeline of grid collapses this year shows that the first occurred on Sunday, February the 4th, 2024, leading to prolonged outages across many regions of the country. Less than 2 months later, the grid suffered another collapse on Thursday, March the 28th. It was followed by another incident on April the 15th, less than a month later. It affected key cities and industrial zones, with the national grid provider attributing the cause to frequency imbalances within the system. On Saturday, July the 16th, the national grid collapsed again. The mid-year crisis caused heightened public frustration as critical sectors, including healthcare and manufacturing, were disrupted. The instability continued on Monday, August the 5th, with yet another collapse. Widespread blackouts were reported across the country, raising serious questions about investment, maintenance, and capacity of the nation's energy infrastructure. Last month witnessed the highest number of collapses on October the 14th, 15th, and 19th. 2 collapses have so far been witnessed in November, and in between the 2 dates, the Intersectoral Investigative Committee on System Collapse submitted its report to the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu. The committee explained the problems and the measures being taken.
We had 2 shunt reactors in Jeba before this event. However, one add-up is faulty, so the voltage rose to about 400 kilovolts. That's beyond the threshold. And high voltage degrades equipment insulation. If you expose equipment to high voltages for a long time, it degrades the insulation, and of course, there's risk of failure.
Depth of power equipment, regulation of power installations, and all that. In spite of this, they have responded swiftly to ensure that none of the grid collapse actually lasted more than 24 hours.
The power minister has now ordered the Transmission Company of Nigeria and all other relevant agencies of the ministry to begin the immediate implementation of the recommendations of the committee. Nigerians will be hoping to see if this intervention could at least arrest the constant electricity cut as the country heads into the festive season.
Meanwhile, Nigerians have expressed doubt over the safety of compressed natural gas power vehicles, following the recent decision by the Malaysian government to phase out the use of natural gas for vehicles by July 2025. The Malaysian Transport Minister, Anthony Loke, had said the 2025 ban was to prioritize the safety of road users and the public. In his words, and I quote, "These NGV tanks have a safe usage lifespan of approximately 15 years, and if they are not replaced, they become unsafe to use and may fail at any time." Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, yesterday tried to allay public fears in a post on X, saying Malaysia's policy was focused on the safety of liquefied petroleum gas and not CNG. I'm now being joined by Dr. Idowu Oyebanjo, a renowned power system engineer who has distinguished himself in the power sector both in Nigeria and the United Kingdom, where he worked meritoriously for over a decade. Dr. Oyebanjo is the managing director of Idfon Power Engineering Consultants Limited. Dr. Oyebanjo, great to have you on This Day Live. Thank you for joining us.
It's a great pleasure to be with you again, and I want to welcome also our viewers and those who are following us keenly.
Well, Dr. Oyebanjo, look, we all know what the problem is. The national grid is perpetually collapsing. We had Professor Yemi Oke on the morning show earlier this week, and he had written that, in fact, if we're not careful, the national grid will collapse more before December. We'll be counting 14 times. So we all know what the problem is. They say poor infrastructure. They say they are doing repairs, but the grid keeps collapsing. If you are in band A to band 0, you don't get electricity. Let's talk about solutions. What do you think is wrong? What do you think we can do as an expert in the field?
The very first thing I will say is that I will speak as a technocrat, as somebody who has worked in my last 17 years on a functional electricity system where you don't have grid collapses. And where if you must have a grid collapse, a national grid collapse, else will roll. Investigations will be done. Penalties will be paid. Huge sanctions will follow, and you will never repeat it. So that's the environment I've been in the last 17 years practicing power systems.
So where is that? Where is that?
And United Kingdom.
Okay.
And many thanks to the government of the United Kingdom for training me properly in power systems. I was given enough training to help any nation to come out of the problem of power. Now, having said that,
you have a PhD in power systems from Manchester University.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I must also thank Federal Poly Ilaro, where I got my OND, and the University of Lagos, where I got my first degree. Now, what needs to be done? Any nation, Nigeria inclusive, that wants to have no experience of grid collapse must first of all fix the foundational problem. And that foundational problem is meritocracy, meritocracy, meritocracy. No missing words about it. Meritocracy means square pegs in square holes. Simple. This concept of meritocracy, if you remember Singaporean rejuvenation and economic development, Lee Kuan Yew, he said 3 things are important for any development economically. He said they are meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. For meritocracy, he went to look for the best people in the various professions. So I will stay on that. Every other thing that needs to be done will also revolve around meritocracy. If you continue in a nation to put square pegs in triangular holes, you will never get electricity in that nation. That's number one. The second thing that needs to be done immediately, very many thanks to President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Muhammadu Buhari. He laid a foundation in March 2023 for Nigeria to develop the Electricity Act, which was now signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That singular act is the law of this country. Anybody that works against that act is actually saying we must remain in grid collapse perpetually. So the next thing after meritocracy is make sure you implement the Electricity Act, which is the law. This will make it possible for consumers like you and I to put solar on our roof. And then that solar will generate electricity for us, solve our problems, and the excess we can sell to the grid, so we make more money. It will cause what we call demand-side management. It will make renewable energies that we have in abundance, that United Kingdom is trying to borrow and coming all the way from there to North Africa to come and pipe sun so that they can continue to develop. And we have it and we are not using it. Biomass, landfill, and so on and so forth. Tidal barrages, because the coastal region has tidal waves. Tidal waves can be converted easily, of course, by those of us who understand power system, to power. But we have it. Go to the Barbies. You will be having all this. You will be afraid to stay near. We will convert it for you. So you have energy all over Nigeria. Hydro. There's so many dams in Nigeria. They are not using this. This electricity act will make it happen. Because any state, by now, over 15 months, that has not enacted its electricity law and has not put in place the electricity regulator of the state, watch out for them. They will never be like Ekiti State. They will never be like Enugu. They will never be like Abia. They will never be like Edo. And they will never be like Imo or Oyo in terms of development.
What of Lagos? We have renewable energy in Lagos.
If you look at the
You live in Lagos. You have left out Lagos.
If you look at what has happened in Lagos in the last 2 weeks, you will see a pre-qualification tender that went out asking for IPPs, companies to come and invest in power generation. You see Ekiti asking companies to come and invest in power generation, transmission, distribution, metering. Why? Because they are forward thinking. When those states now build their railways, when those states now have uninterrupted power supply, the ones that did not put the Electricity Act in prison, we now want to drag them back. So that's the second one. The other thing that needs to be done, look at this grid collapse we are talking about. When the grid collapsed, all the times, some parts of Akwa Ibom State did not feel it. They didn't even know because they became an island straight away. What that means is that any state, like the ones I've mentioned, once they start their own Electricity Act and they implement it, whenever there is this grid collapse, they will not feel it. So why is it that those people are not focusing on doing that? And that's one thing that needs to be done.
Okay, in other words, are you talking about the decentralization of the transmission company of Nigeria? Because there's a lot of, blame trading. The TCN will say, no, it's the discos that do not offtake what is provided. The discos will say, well, TCN is the problem. Now, where is the weak link?
The weak link.
Should we decentralize TCN?
But the Electricity Act already calls for what you are talking about, which is the unbundling of TCN. Unbundling of TCN into two parts. The wire part, which is transmission system provider, TSP, and then the system operator part, which we call the National Independent System Operator. You have to separate this ISO, which you call unbundling, you have to separate it from TSP. Now, this ISO will now perform according to its license, and they're about setting it up now. But if they ever set it up again, like they did the privatization in 2013 without meritocracy, the answer for Nigeria in 10 years' time is zero. What do you have to do? The NISO must be full of competent individuals, competent in the field. What do they have to do? They have to enforce what we call the grid code. The system operator in that NISO, the head of the system operator, will ensure that he enforces what we call the grid code. Then anybody, disco, TCN, any market player that is making the problem will be exposed. That's one. The market operator there will enforce the market rules. And the most important one, in my opinion, the planning officer there needs to be thoroughly bred. That person is the one that will design the network. He will be the person that will lead the via power system studies. He will make sure that grid collapse will not happen because of the ideas of planning that is going to put. So that's another thing that needs to be done. Governance structure. Governance structure is everything. If you have a private company, one of the first things they will put in place is a governance structure. Why? Because once you get the governance wrong, you will get wrong. Again, meritocracy. If you put the wrong person who has no experience and no business in power supply system and does not know what it means, you will not get electricity. Try as hard as you can, you will never have it. You will always continue to have grid collapse. Look, if you are somebody like me who doesn't know so much about my vehicle, and the mechanic comes to say, oh, what's wrong with your vehicle is so. How do you even know what that thing means? Anyway, I will push for meritocracy in that place. NISO to enforce the grid code, and let us now
Dr.
have
Oyebanjo,
yeah?
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
You have been saying meritocracy, square pegs being put in rectangular frames. Are you saying specifically, categorically, that the people that President Tinubu has put in charge of the electricity sector in Nigeria from minister to everybody down the line, that is carpenters trying to provide electricity, and they fail because they are carpenters who do not know what they are doing. Let's be specific. Just cut them out if that is if that is what you are saying.
Exactly not, because what I am saying is
if there are people of merit, we will not be having problems.
You see, it takes...
If they are not carpenters, they will know all these solutions you are providing.
Look, these solutions I'm mentioning have been put as recommendation many times. It is the implementation based on meritocracy that I've said that
you can only implement what you understand. If these are, incompetents, a group of thunderheads, then they will be creating problems for Nigeria. Say it specifically. That these are people who are not fit for purpose. Because we feel the pain from band A to band whatever.
So in any nation that wants to have uninterrupted power supply, that want to avoid grid collapses, they must put meritocracy above mediocrity. That's all I can say. Make do with that information, whatever you want to.
So the people in charge of the electricity sector in Nigeria at this moment, by your reckoning, are mediocres.
I will not be able to say that.
Okay. Deductive reasoning suggests that that's what you are saying.
I have only told you as a power system authority. And by the way, once I speak on power systems...
You say you are authority.
Oh, yeah.
Are you a constituted authority? Because that's the phrase in Nigeria. Constituted authority.
Okay, so the authority given to me by the Senate of the University of Manchester to possess a PhD in power system means that when I speak on power systems, only few people in the world can challenge it. Only few. In the world, not in Nigeria, in the world. Because I'm telling you exactly how to run a power system. Look,
I like your confidence.
If a person
Do you
has
know how many PhD engineering from Harvard, from MIT, who have been recruited to
not
Nigeria?
Not from Manchester.
And who did not work.
Not from Manchester.
Who if I had to pack their bags and run away when Nigeria happened to them.
Oh,
Nigeria happens to people.
Nigeria can happen to anybody. But I am telling you the professional side, how it should be done. It's up to a nation that feels the pain to put the right people in the right places. That's all I can say.
Okay, you were defining the solutions. The last one was governance structure.
The governance structure. The next one, you have to invest massively. Policy number 9 of the Renewed Hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu clearly specifies that within 100 days of the administration, he shall put in place a presidential tax advisory panel power in his own office. This body is the only solution that Nigeria can now have. They must put meritocracy in front. They must employ people who have worked in electricity systems that are functioning before. Otherwise, you will keep getting grid collapse. What will these people do? 1, massive investment in generation. Make sure the Electricity Act that he has signed comes to life. 3, they will put metering on all consumers. You cannot be giving estimated darkness to people and you say that's a power system. Any power system that makes consumers unhappy is not a functioning power system. A functioning power system is defined in my power system 101 course as the one that makes consumers happy. Anything short of that is not a power system. It is just existing wires. The last one is training. Training. Training is so important. Like I said in my introduction, I was properly trained. That's why I can speak like this. That's why I know, without even reading reports of anybody, I will tell you as an outsider what's going on and what's wrong. And if I get the report, look, you have grid collapse. You have never had a transparent investigation of the root causes of the 11 grid collapses. The introduction to this discussion mentioned the days. Excellent reporting. February, March, April. No single one have we had the full report of what happened. Guess what? If you just tell anybody whatever that is the cause, you just get misled. Give us a publication. Publish the reasons why the things failed so that we can tell you, even from far or near, why and what you should do next. Protection is a major problem in Nigeria. Protection. In your last discussion, before myself, you talked about the protection, and the guy was very excellent. He said, we should move past forest gas to secure our equipment. How can it be that our power system infrastructure are being vandalized when you have technologies, drones? You have systems that will see any human some 100 kilometers away, or even 30 kilometers, or even so near, that before they can ever get to that place, ever, you will take them off. They won't do it in a country. If you don't put meritocracy in place, they will not do it. Corruption. Now, you need protection of the networks. Like the incident that occurred recently, is the protection of the network that caused that one. Now, what's that one? Protection is an aspect of power system that is very difficult. It is the most complex part of power system engineering. Only few people in the whole world understand it very well. In Nigeria, there is a gross lack of adequate protection system. You know, when I say gross, I look at the settings in some places, I shook my head. I knew that it will always collapse because these settings are wrong. Like inadequate protection grading in Nigerian system is causing the system to wobble. The low amount of generation, just about 3,500 get to population of 2,000, it will cause grid collapse. So training, human capacity development, based on meritocracy is the only answer for the Nigerian power system.
Okay, Dr. Oyebanjo, as we begin to wrap up, I'd like you to talk about the discos. The discos, they are the ones that we face as ordinary consumers. They are saying the cost of metering, of meters will go up. I think they've increased the cost. They are complaining about energy theft. They are saying the transmission company is inefficient. They blame everybody, including the consumers. And I asked you earlier, where do you think the weak link is? Are the discos, as vulnerable as the people that they serve at the lower end, or at the downstream end, if I may use that phrase, of electricity provision?
Again, it goes back to meritocracy. When they wanted to privatize the system in 2013, they got calls and offers from people who have experience of distribution. Plenty of them. They came. When the Nigeria happened to those people, they left. We ended up with people who are not technically and financially okay for the job. This is the disaster that resulted, okay? The answer, separate that wire business in distribution from supply business. I promise you these problems will be solved. Separate it. And then make sure that you bring in new players who have the technical and financial backup for what they want to do.
Well, except that there are contractual agreements. You can't just bring in new players like that. The contracts must run out. There are terms under the law of contract. Otherwise, in trying to solve a problem, you create another one.
But the contracts have run out, haven't they?
Yeah, but what has anybody done about those contracts?
Meritocracy.
Okay, so we go back to the point that mediocres are running the electricity sector in Nigeria.
I didn't say so, Dr. Abati. You are a doctor yourself. I'm telling you, in the UK, for the last 17 years I've been working there, this is how we have been able to maintain our grid. And I'm recommending Nigeria should follow suit.
Okay, let me ask you the other question that came up in the introduction. CNG, compressed national gas, a major issue in the negotiation between Nigerian Labour Congress and the federal government regarding new national minimum wage. And the government will say, we'll make CNG available. We'll also address the challenges of clean energy. All of a sudden for us to hear that in Malaysia is saying, no, this thing is risky. After a few years, the CNG contraptions will constitute problems of safety. But the federal government now, through Mr. Ononuga, is saying, no, they are talking about LPG. They are not talking about CNG. Whether it's CNG or LPG, shouldn't Nigerians be worried about safety? And how appropriate that is to address the energy question in terms of the affordability of the pump price of fuel?
Excellent. Fortunately, as an energy expert, my remit is oil, gas, and power. Now, any country can implement any solution to alleviate the problem of its citizen. And most countries will do. United Kingdom, USA, Malaysia. In the case of Malaysia, they spent about 19 years and a few months. 19 years and a few months implementing this. From 1995, they started this concept. They used it to solve a problem at that time. But they applied meritocracy. How? The people, first of all, brought free buses. CNG buses, free for the citizens. Let them be traveling without paying, okay? Let them have that free. They now gave them free kits. They now make taxi drivers to have automatic $700. They gave them. Say, look, we'll do it for you freely, then we also give you additional $700, okay? After every vehicle owner was also put under a program. That program means if you own a car, they will help you change it free of charge, okay? They now changed it. It now solved the problem of energy poverty. People now forgot everything. Now that they know that the thing lasts for 15 years and they have achieved their purpose, instead of just repeating it when they have changed to something else, they just say, don't worry, we will now pay you to even remove it. So let me say it like this. If you allow meritocracy, those who are trained or those who are from the background of meritocracy, you know what they will do? They will do all those things I've said. They will first of all make Nigerians feel as if there is nothing happening. They will put all this public transportation, bus, CNG, they will first of all put them there. When they put them there, hold on, please. When they put these things there, they will give all the drivers free of charge. Everything I've said before. Then they will roll out this thing. Something that will now make prices cheaper. And now, within those 10 years, we will work on our energy system based on meritocracy. We will put the right people who have experience in our oil, gas, and power. They will lead it. In those 10 years, once we are finished, and these CNG things are reaching their 15, 25-year life something, we will say, forget them, go away, go back to our normal resources. So what's that? It's meritocracy.
Okay, as we begin to wrap up, Dr. Oyebanjo, I mean, as an energy expert, oil, gas, and power, PhD, Manchester Power Systems, you are in Nigeria. Are you enjoying regular electricity supply? Because I noticed that when you got here, you were carrying power banks, you were carrying your phones, and you were saying our producers should help you charge your phones.
Yeah.
Are you in this with us?
Yes.
As a PhD Power Systems in your country?
Yeah. So you have to remember that for a person to leave a place like United Kingdom to return to his home country, he knows fully well that there is no place like home. That's one. Two, I cannot be flicking the switch in the United Kingdom every day and take power for granted. I go to rail stations, precision, everything is there, and my country is in darkness. I feel the pull to come and help. And this is how I'm helping. By explaining that it's meritocracy, by making contributions, by putting discussion, by engaging the necessary stakeholders, by making my own impact felt. Now, you spoke about the power bank. In my whole life, in the last 20 years, yesterday was the first time ever that I had to charge my phone at a Malam's place, where the Malam was charging, because I was on another program, and they were trying to reach me. And for the first time in the last 20 years, I had to use the Malam. Why? Because this is of the inefficiency in the system, the lack of meritocracy. Only meritocracy can deliver a power system that is stable, efficient, and sustainable.
Well, Dr. Oyebanjo, thank you very much. I can tell you for free that Arise News will not give you an invoice for charging your phones and your power bank in our premises the moment you arrived.
You know,
I think Nigeria happened to you too.
Oh yeah, one minister of power said power belongs to God. So when power belongs to God, then what do we do?
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.